Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I'm excited to be here with Orsini and to talk about specialty pharmacies and their role in the PBC patient's care. PBC um, is something we all share in common, and it's always good when we're learning about new phases in our PBC journey that we get the information on how these pharmacies work as part of our care. A few housekeeping things. Please remain on mute and during the meeting to avoid background noises. And questions will be answered at the end. Please submit them through the chat. So I'm sure that you know that I'm Carol Roberts, president of the PBCers, but for those who don't, then we have Kathy Henson. She's a senior VP of Patient Services, Nursing and Quality with Orsini. She's also a pharmacist. Katie Gillick is a patient advocate and a fellow rare disease patient. For those who are not familiar with Orsini, they're a nationwide specialty pharmacy that's focused on specifically in rare diseases. They dispense more than 80 specialty medications for over 50 different rare conditions. The company is headquartered in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, with a second pharmacy in Columbus, Ohio. Here's the topics that we're going to learn and learning objectives that Kathy and Katie plan to cover this evening, starting with a review of the different stakeholders involved in the specialty medicine ecosystem. Then they'll dive into more specifically with a brief intro and an overview of the steps that a prescription takes as it moves through the specialty pharmacy. We'll close out the evening with questions. Thank you for those who submitted questions in advance. For those that are just attending now or something pops in your head, type it into the chat to be answered in the question and answer portion at the end of the meeting. With that, I'll turn things over to Katie to get us started.
Thank you so much, Carol, for providing that wonderful introduction for us. And hi to everyone who has joined us tonight. As Carol shared, my name is Katie Gillick, and I'm a patient advocate with Orsini Specialty Pharmacy. On behalf of my team and Orsini, we're all just so excited to be here to share our perspective with you tonight and hopefully to help to educate about specialty pharmacy's role in patient care. This is a topic that is of particular importance to me specifically. As Carol shared, I am a fellow rare disease patient, and my community has actually very recently also had a new therapy come to market earlier this year, and we are going through the exact same process as all of you with adjusting to specialty pharmacies' role in the process. And so I relate very closely to many of the questions and adjustments that are coming along with specialty pharmacy in general. So we're hopeful that our presentation today will help to offer some clarification. And with that, we'll move specifically into something that we call the specialty medication ecosystem. So this graph is meant to kind of give you a generalized overview of who the players are in the process. So as you can see, there's quite a few. Not all of them are relevant in every particular situation, and we'll get to that as we continue to have a discussion this evening. But we just wanted to kind of level set on who the players are that you might be hearing about, who you might be interacting with in various stages of your care and how each one individually contributes to the process. So the first one that we're going to cover is the biopharma manufacturer. Sometimes you'll hear this referenced as pharma or as the manufacturer. Basically, this is the entity that makes the medication. They conduct clinical trials and they help to facilitate this initial part of bringing a medication forward to patients. So when specialty pharmacy comes into play is when they select us as a partner to connect patients with treatment options. And so that tends to happen once the medication is approved, and that's done to help make sure that patients can be connected with whomever the specialty pharmacy is that then dispenses the medication to the community. It also evaluates the safety and efficacy of drugs in clinical trials, and make sure that the drug is safe for patients to experience. The next role in the process is the healthcare provider. This is something that we're all familiar with. This is the person that we meet with when we're looking to have medication prescribed. And the physician is responsible for making sure that the script gets written and sent over to the pharmacy, and then monitoring the patient's response to the medication. Um, the doctor has different options. And so, depending on the circumstance available for the specific therapy and the manufacturer who's involved, the doctor might either send the prescription directly to the pharmacy, or they might send it to something called the Patient Services Hub. And so that's our next stage in the process that we'll cover. So if a patient services hub is available, then the prescription goes from the doctor to the hub. Then this is the part at which the specialty pharmacy and the hub kind of can sometimes work together. So there's two key steps that occur in this process. The patient's insurance has to approve the coverage for the therapy, and the patient's out-of-pocket costs have to be identified to understand if the patient can afford the medication. And so this is kind of where we start talking about insurance and the financial assistance provider, but the hub kind of helps to facilitate the patient's benefits and access to the medication with insurance and the financial assistance provider in mind. And it's also a resource bank that helps patients to be connected with the options that are available. So this looks different depending upon what therapies are involved. And again, a hub is not always part of the process, but it is something that we like to mention because when it is available, it is one of the ways that the script can flow from the healthcare provider's office to the specialty pharmacy. So the next part of the equation is something that all of us are familiar with, right? Not just from specialty medication, but from any medication that has to go through insurance, right? It's your insurance company. So this is the entity that, as we know, that reviews the prior authorization requests that get processed by the doctor and the insurance, and it's the entity that eventually approves the medication coverage. And so the patient services hub and the specialty pharmacy can each contribute to that stage of the process, depending upon who is working on the coverage aspect. But it's just something that we like to highlight as an entity that everyone is familiar with. And the next one, distinct from the insurance company, which deals with benefits in one respect, is the financial assistance provider. This includes something called a 501(c)(3) foundation or copay program. And again, each therapy, depending upon how the network is set up, may have access to a financial assistance provider or different types of financial assistance providers. It's something that varies by therapy and by manufacturer. And so actually also by insurance. So this is another part of the process that helps to assist patients with finances to afford their medication, copay support, and eligibility. And finally, we arrive at the stage of the process that we come from. So we are the specialty pharmacy who dispenses the prescribed medication. So after it goes through potentially a hub, if a hub is part of the process, the insurance, the financial assistance provider, we arrive at the stage where we are able to dispense the prescribed medication. And as I mentioned before, sometimes we are involved in that process of dealing with the prior authorization and the financial assistance as well. And the specialty pharmacy is also responsible for something we reference as adherence support. And so we will also sometimes offer trainings with respect to the medication supplied to assist the patients in making sure that they understand how their therapy works, how to administer the therapy. So for example, that if that includes, if your therapy is an injection, we would offer injection training in compliance with how the medication is supposed to be prescribed. So that is some of the things that specialty pharmacy works with, and we'll be going more in depth about the role of specialty pharmacy and the things that specialty pharmacy does that is different from a retail pharmacy later on in the presentation. And finally, we arrive at the last bubble that we have in our ecosystem, and that's the patient advocacy organization. So all of you are familiar with PBCers as an example. This is the part where we like to partner with our patient advocacy orgs because we recognize that they know the patients the best. They've often taken the patient perspective all the way from diagnosis through the time of drug approval and beyond. And we tend to trust them as our partners in helping us to advise on what is best for the patient, what the needs are for the patients. And we really try to work closely with them to design our approaches so that they're in line with what the patient preferences and needs are with respect to how we supply their medications. And we recognize them as a source of disease education, peer support, and just general education. Not only would they educate you, but they educate us. And so that's part of why we wanted to do this webinar so that we can make sure that we're closely aligned with how we can best service this disease. So we finally arrive at this is my favorite slide actually, because it gives a really nice visual of who are the always parties that are always involved in the process versus who is sometimes involved in the process. So the players who are always involved are the biopharma manufacturer, our healthcare providers, the insurance company, and the specialty pharmacy. Sometimes a patient services hub and a financial assistance provider and the patient advocacy organizations are also involved at different stages of the process. But we thought this gives a nice overview of who makes the drug, prescribes the drug, approves coverage for the drug, and dispenses the drug. These are your core four. So hopefully this was a helpful representation of how the process works, where specialty pharmacy falls kind of in that equation and what the role is on a very introductory level. And we would love to take additional questions about how that process works later on in the presentation. For now, I would love to turn this over to my colleague Kathy to kind of go over the next stage of how specialty pharmacy works with respect to how we supply our patients.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And it's really great to be here with you all this evening. Thanks for having us. So now that Katie's given us a nice understanding of the specialty medication ecosystem, we want to do a little bit deeper dive into the specialty pharmacy and different aspects of the specialty pharmacy. Next slide. So many patients who are new to specialty pharmacies often wonder why they can't pick up, why can't I pick up my prescription at the local retail pharmacy? And there are several different reasons why the manufacturer might choose to make the medication available through specialty pharmacies rather than your traditional retail. And you'll see some of those reasons outlined here in this slide. But, in short, specialty medications are usually medications that are a little more complex and treat more complex conditions, as well as higher cost medications. So specialty pharmacies like Orsini have specific resources, services, and training to manage these medications and really help you as patients and your healthcare providers navigate the treatment journey and do everything we can to make sure you get access to the medications that you need. So, Katie talked a little bit about specialty pharmacy's role, but really when we think about, what is the role, our specialty pharmacy's role in patient care, every specialty pharmacy is a little bit different, but ultimately, specialty pharmacies really focus on three pillars: access, affordability, and adherence. So access is what Katie talked about, is really once the medication is prescribed, right, working with your insurance company to make sure we have all the right approvals in place so that you have access, and we make sure that we coordinate that very closely with your healthcare provider. Affordability. So, these are, like I mentioned earlier, these are high cost medications, and we want to make sure that if patients need additional assistance, financially, that we help to connect them to those resources as well. So in the Q&A portion, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about just what Katie mentioned, copay programs, some of the foundation assistance, and patient assistance programs. And then lastly, adherence. So, once you've been prescribed this specialty therapy, what we want to do, as particularly as a pharmacist, is, our role is to make sure you understand what the medication is, what side effects you could potentially experience, and then help you along that treatment journey to make sure that you stay adherent to the medication. So certainly, pharmacists are typically available 24/7. But we'll talk through kind of what that process looks like here in just a little bit more detail as well. So now what we'd like to do is really do a little bit deeper dive. So once that prescription comes to the specialty pharmacy from your healthcare provider, what happens and what are all the steps that we have to take to ensure that you receive your medication? So the first step is really receiving that what we call an enrollment or a prescription. So we get that either from your healthcare provider, so your physician, or as Katie mentioned, a hub, manufacturer hub services. Sometimes we can get a referral that way. The first thing we do once we receive that referral is we do what's called a benefit investigation. So we ping your insurance company to see if you have benefits and you actually have insurance coverage. And then typically for most specialty medications, once it's been identified that yes, you do have coverage, most of them do require a prior authorization. So we start that process as quickly as possible as well. So we submit that in conjunction, help your healthcare provider work with them to make sure that that prior authorization gets submitted as quickly as possible for approval. And then once we have that approval back, then that's where we can understand kind of what your out-of-pocket costs are going to be and really assess what other financial assistance options might be available to you. So when we do that initial outreach to you, is what we call a welcome call. We discuss kind of what your out-of-pocket costs are going to be, what financial assistance options are available, and help you get access to that assistance as well. And then we also, we'll probably ask some questions about your healthcare history, really understand what other medications you're taking, and coordinate the shipment to you at home. And typically, many times, in many cases, you will have to be home and available to sign for that prescription so that we have proof that it was actually received. And there's a lot of different ways that can happen as well. And then, as I mentioned, ongoing access, as part of that initial dispense, you'll have the ability to speak to a pharmacist to talk you through and do that kind of initial counseling that I mentioned earlier. Again, pharmacist always available 24/7 to answer any questions that you might have. And then you'll have someone that will reach out to you either via phone or text on a monthly basis to set up your next refill, so you don't have to remember to do that yourselves. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So wanted to talk a little bit about the team that we have at Orsini that supports PBC patient care. So this is specifically how we do things, but really most specialty pharmacies have very similar roles. So the first role is a patient care coordinator. So that's the person that you're going to hear from typically first. That's going to let you know that we received your prescription, let you know what's going on relative to the insurance approval process. And then once everything's approved, this is the person that you'll talk to that will kind of talk to you about your financial assistance options, set up your medication shipment, and then on an ongoing basis be that person who helps to coordinate your refills. And they do any coordination that's needed with the hub and your healthcare provider. Your specialty pharmacist is the one that I mentioned earlier that will do your medication counseling, will verify the prescription that was received from your physician to make sure it was written appropriately, make sure we don't have any questions, help you understand how to manage any potential side effects, and just answer any questions or concerns that you might have. And then lastly is our patient advocate, which is Katie's role, right? So talking to you, getting feedback from you. How are we doing as a specialty pharmacy? What other things can we do to help you as a patient and support you during your treatment journey? What suggestions do you have to improve our service? And then certainly helping, again, just supporting you and your healthcare provider throughout that journey. So that's kind of the bulk of the presentation tonight. I think what we'd like to do next is there were some questions that were submitted ahead of time. So we'd like to go through those questions, answer those questions, and then certainly we have plenty of time if you guys have additional questions. We're happy to answer those as well. So the first question we received is, will receiving medication from a specialty pharmacy have the ability to flag drug interactions like my local pharmacist does? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. So each specialty pharmacy's process is, again, it's a little bit different, but if you are receiving medications through Orsini, your patient care coordinator will ask you about other medications that you're taking, as well as the pharmacist. When you're having that initial pharmacist counseling, we'll record those medications within your profile, within our systems, so that we can review for any potential drug interactions. And then we will also, when we reach out on a monthly basis to set up your refills, we will ask if there have been any changes to your medications so that we can always make sure that that information is current. And again, if you ever have any questions, you can always ask the team to speak with a pharmacist to help you with any of those questions. The second question was, what about costs, name brand medications, choices, lists of insurances that are accepted, and timely delivery. So that's a pretty big question. So let's kind of break it down in a few pieces. So medications, there are several FDA-approved products available to treat PBC. There is a list on the PBCers website that is available for you. But really, your healthcare provider is the person that can really help you determine what treatment is the right treatment for you as an individual. Relative to cost and insurance accepted, insurance coverage and cost is really specific to each patient, right? Everybody's benefits are just slightly different. So the specialty pharmacy will be able to provide, once we have your information, we'll be able to provide this information to you once your doctor prescribes the medication. And then lastly, timely delivery. So Orsini sends the medication for next day delivery. And again, our patient care coordinator will contact you, make sure we schedule the medication delivery so you'll be available to receive it. But if you're using a different specialty pharmacy for other products, that process might vary slightly, but they're all pretty similar. How to get the lowest copays. So there are two forms of main forms of financial assistance depending on your insurance and situation. So again, all very variable and really down to what you as an individual need. The manufacturer copay programs offer copay assistance for commercially insured patients who are not utilizing a secondary insurance. So the program availability, eligibility, maximum amount often varies by medication. But as an example, for Livdelzi, Gilead has a support path program that offers copay assistance for commercially insured patients that are not utilizing secondary insurance that has a $10,000 annual maximum. And other products typically have similar kinds of programs, but eligibility and maximums may vary. Foundation assistance is what we were talked about. I think Katie mentioned earlier the 501c3. So there's an organization called the Assistant Foundation, or TAF, and they offer copay assistance for all PBC patients across several different FDA-approved therapies. So it's typically used for patients covered through a government insurance plan or for commercially insured patients, typically after they've hit their $10,000 copay program maximum. Foundation funding is typically limited, available on a limited basis, and may open or close throughout the year. So again, the specialty pharmacy will be able to help you guide through that process of enrollment and accessing the foundation resources. The next question is the costs and what help to pay for the medications are available. I understand these new medications are extremely expensive and often not covered by insurance at all. So as we mentioned previously, insurance coverage, the cost, financial assistance options are specific to each patient. And the specialty pharmacy should clearly explain your insurance coverage options and connect you with what financial assistance resources might be available for you. The next question is, a local consultant recommended elafibranor 4 months ago, but I still have not been prescribed. How do I get a consultant in a different hospital to prescribe it when I'm not their patient? So in this situation, we really do recommend that you consult your healthcare provider for guidance. Again, that your physician or your healthcare provider is going to be the person that is going to be best equipped to help you as an individual, and provide the right recommendations for you for your care. And then lastly, I've recently been prescribed Livdelzi, but cannot get the prescription filled. My doctors are attributing this to the Ocaliva issue. Are there suggestions you can offer? And yes, we can help. That they would be specific again to you as an individual and your insurance coverage. So if you are experiencing challenges, you can email us, and we'll have that email address here for you on here in just a bit. It's the Livdelzi care team at Orsini.com. And then we'll get you, can help get you connected, answer any questions you might have. And then, we can certainly assist you if your doctor does prescribe, something that we can help with.
So I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening to help understand the role of a specialty pharmacy. We're very grateful to Orsini for their partnership on this webinar. There's some information up now on how to contact them. And if you follow the PBCers on our website or our Facebook page and Instagram, you can watch for, we have a save the date coming up of October 15th. We'll be doing a webinar on the transition process if you're taking Ocaliva and have to switch over to a new medication. So that will be at 7 p.m. on the 15th. And you can watch for the links on all of our channels. So thank you very much for joining, and we hope we helped in the process. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're done.
Yep, you can stop the recording now too.
I thought I did. I paused it anyway.
It's showing still recording.